we are on to our top performers. And I'm going to kick this thing off. We talked a little bit about him on the Monday episode. We're going to bring it home here on the Wednesday episode. Quarterback Sam Howell was an absolute baller. And who were they playing? Austin P. Austin P, one of the worst programs in all of college football. But still, super impressive as a thrower. He obviously had that dime deep ball. That was your cake your pants moment from Monday's episode. But honestly, I was kind of stunned how much North Carolina leverages him as a runner. He had that long rushing touchdown that I thought I did not expect him to have the wheels to do that. And I know not a lot of people on Austin P are running 4.3s or 4.4s, but still, he looked like legit a weapon as a runner for North Carolina. It was also a big bounce back week for him.
He's not going to be a runner in the NFL.
He's not going to be a runner in the NFL, but I think he's got sneaky athleticism.
Oh, don't you dare.
Sneaky. No, I think he's fast. I mean, he looks fast. I mean, he's definitely not an athlete. He's
I bet he runs a 4.75.
Fair enough.
Which, I mean, that you can run an option run with him. Like you'll have to respect it.
I think Austin P had to respect it because he looked really good as a runner. Obviously looked good.
Like I don't feel like I feel the same way about Spencer Rattler, who's next on this list, where you're not going to involve him in your run game. Like you're not going to run a quarterback power with him too much, but you have to respect him. And when he breaks the pocket, you have to respect that. And that's how I feel about Sam Howell. Obviously, Sam Howell went against low-level competition, but I know you highlighted Howell as a bit of a faller after week 1. Where's your head at with Howell now? Yeah, I mean, I don't really care about that game at all.
Really?
I mean, it's Austin P. I mean, those throws are sick. We know he has a cannon. It's more about, like, what does he do when it's difficult? Yeah, has been the issue. Last year's Notre Dame game, obviously last week against Virginia Tech, and some more games on the schedule this year. We'll see.
Spencer Rattler, I know another guy that we've highlighted as having a tough week 1 performance this week, again, against low-level competition. So was Tulane, though. 91.7 PFF grade. I thought it looked really good in this one, too.
Yeah, I mean, we're waiting for the real games on the schedule before we're actually going to care about what so he's gone through 2 weeks now without a big-time throw because that's just the Oklahoma offense. He's put up ridiculous stats. 75.8 completion percentage through 2 weeks, but it's just been too easy. And for him to have, like I said, 3 turnover plays last week, obviously none this week, but it's Western Carolina. So we will go TBD until some real compo for him.
2 quarterbacks going against cupcake competition. I think you'll see that a lot with some of the highest graded players in college football.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Corral had a good week this past week, but you're also playing, gosh, who did he even play at? Southern Alabama State maybe. Like you're just not until these guys are in the conference schedule, which was a nice part about last year when you had not a lot of cupcakes on their schedules. But until we see some real deal competition, we're just not gonna know.
What about Ike Ekwonu? We watched that tape on the drive back from Columbus, putting everyone in an absolute blender. He's one of the highest graded offensive tackles in the country right now for NC State. Another really, really impressive game as a run blocker, but also keeping relatively clean sheets in pass protection.
Yeah, now this was a guy that I highlighted who was going to be on the biggest riser list because 58 pass blocking snaps, not a single pressure. The best pass blocking performance of his career for my money. Now, it's Mississippi State. It's an SEC team. It's not an SEC team known for their defensive end talent. It's obviously Mike Leach, not known for producing a lot of defensive talent. He was not going up against necessarily guys that are really going to threaten him, but you got to block those guys too. You got to win against those guys too, and he absolutely dominated in that one. So that was, I still don't think he stays at tackle, but the more games like that, the more I can be talked into him possibly staying at tackle because he's playing obviously all left tackle this year.
He's got, I think, the highest or one of the highest positively graded run block percentages of any tackle or any offensive lineman really in the country right now. Yeah, he did that against Mississippi State. The other piece of that, too, is there's a play at 7:39 in the fourth quarter where he literally drives. It's a pass protection rep, but he ends up driving the defensive end like 16 yards down the football field, puts him in the turf, and gets called for a personal foul, still earning an 87.1 grade despite the foul.
Game to watch for him. 2 weeks. Clemson. There you go. That's the one you want to watch.
Next one on my list here, Dante Demas Jr., friend of the pod, Maryland receiver. Yes, they went against Howard, but still, I thought what was interesting here is he had a different level of usage against Howard. They kept him a little bit closer to the line of scrimmage, a lot lower average depth of target this week, can show he could do some stuff after the catch against Howard. Also had a touchdown where he stared down the cornerback for a good 15 seconds. I thought that was pretty nice. 87.0 PFF grade. I know Dante is also high on your list.
Yeah, this is a guy who I liked him going into the season. I got talked out of putting him in the top 100, but he's in the top 100 now. He might be the biggest riser at the receiver position that I've seen so far this year. and obviously not top competition yet, but just at 6'3", damn near 220 pounds, how quickly he gets off the line of scrimmage, I'm very intrigued. I think that he's going to be a 4-4 guy at that size, and that'll get you drafted pretty highly. Not a lot of guys that size running 4.4s go in like the 5th, 6th. You go in the 3rd, 4th if you're that, and he could even go higher than that.
Absolute stud, Demas Jr. for Maryland. Next one on my list. I bucketed all these guys because they went against some of the worst tackles in college football, but they graded really well. And I thought, continue to check boxes. We talk a lot about competition. You have to do it against when you're going against terrible offensive tackles. It's expected that you grade well. Let's highlight those performances. Not every highly regarded edge defender in college football going against cupcake competition graded like these folks. Nick Bonito of Oklahoma, George Karlaftis of Purdue, and Kingsley Enagbare of South Carolina all played really, really good football. Karlaftis specifically only played, I think, the first half against UConn, dominated. Nick Bonito has an array of moves, is super athletic, and super slippery to block, specifically in run defense. He had another good game as well. And then Kingsley, largely unblockable for South Carolina this past week. Another really impressive performance for him.
Yeah, I really can't wait to see testing numbers for Bonito and Enagbare because they're both just so they physically dominate tackles. Like they don't get touched sometimes. Like they are just that level of explosive. And now Are they going to be like 4-5 guys, or are they going to be like 4-7 guys who just have a little bit of quicks and maybe don't have necessarily the pure explosiveness to threaten at the NFL level?
Enagbare, 7 total pressures against East Carolina this past week. He had probably the best competition of any of those edges I just listed, but still some cupcake competition for all of them.
Yeah, he was just playing with guys.
Yeah. Last one here, and this is a good segment into your biggest risers segment, but one of the top performers, another edge player, and I didn't bucket him with the others because he actually went against some legit competition for Washington. Jackson Kirkland, the left tackle for Washington, dominated. 80.1 PFF grade for Aiden Hutchinson in this game. Multiple really, really impressive pass rushing reps. Also looked good against the run. The commentators in that game literally had just what consistently talked about Hutchinson, and for good reason. Obviously, a Bruce Sullivan's freaks list guy, a guy that we've talked about a ton, a guy that returned to school to do exactly what he's doing now, rise up draft boards.
Yeah, he was overpowering Kirkland. He was the much more physically developed of the two. Like he was the stronger. Like he was just anything he wanted to do, he was pretty much getting in that game. Hutchinson's not making it out of the top. Well, we'll get to that when we get to the segment later on. We'll just say
Hutchinson's next segment, bro. Let's talk about it now.
Well, that's not even this segment that we're getting to later on. But Hutchinson, he's playing a lot pure edge this year. Like he was kind of their guy who would kick inside last year, and I thought he could excel in kind of a 3-4 defensive end type of role. But now I almost like him as like the way how talented he is at kind of setting up opposing tackles. I like him as just like a pure that outside defensive end. Don't even worry about kicking him inside because this guy can make a difference at that spot.
His PFF grade also has improved like every year of his career. 90.5 PFF pass rushing grade through 2 games, Western Michigan and Washington. 10 total pressures. My goodness. The guy off to a stellar start, and I think he's going to be a guy we consistently talk about into the offseason, into April. All right, next on your biggest risers list, we already talked about him too, but Dante Demas Jr. The top performers and biggest risers.
You stole some on your Demas. One of the biggest risers. I said Ekwonu, like what he's done at left tackle and pass protection this year, definitely rising at boards. And then the next one here I'll highlight, Chris Rodriguez, Kentucky. And now, a couple fumbles. Never going to be good, but fumbles is more of a sample size thing. We've talked about that. Fumbles, drops, you want to see one in a game is not necessarily impactful to your draft status. Now, one every couple games for a whole season, that can be impactful to your draft status, but really hasn't been an issue. Didn't fumble once last year, so I'm not super worried about it yet. But 204 yards, 27 carries, 5 broken tackles, just churning yards after contact, damn near 4 yards after contact. I think he has a little more juice. I think he's slimmed down a bit from what he was last year and has a little more home run, big play ability in his game, and even as a receiver looks a little bit better. So I think now he's obviously going to be limited in that regard, and you kind of know what you're getting into for guys 5'11", 225. But if you're looking for a power back in this class, he might be the top guy.
Can we get a quick break in the risers and fallers segment before I touch James Palmer of NFL Media just said on national TV that Tyreek Hill is the best deep threat in NFL history. After Anthony Tresh, an analyst here at PFF, got legitimately put on a barbecue. I think I saw multiple memes of him on a barbecue for having that same take. Now, James Palmer, for whatever reason, is not getting the same hate. I'm not sure why, but here we are. That's
is, not even might be.
No, he is, yeah.
Wow.
Which is impressive. I think a lot of people will come to defend James Palmer before they come to defend Anthony Tresh, but we'll see. We'll absolutely see. For C-Rod, how do you, some of the concerns I have, I know he's a friend of the pod, but what about the long speed?
I said it wasn't, I thought it's a little bit better this year. Like I said, I thought he slimmed down a touch. It's never going to be good, but Najee Harris isn't good. Josh Jacobs isn't good. The amount of power backs who have long speed is like Saquon Barkley. That's why he was the alien that went number 2 overall. There's not a lot of dudes that are in the 225 plus range that you can count on to hit home runs.
And where would you play Marvin Leal at the next level?
So yeah, next biggest riser here, Marvin Leal against Colorado. Monster game. I mean, pretty much unblockable in the run game. And the biggest thing why I loved this tape and probably one to go back to, 18 snaps in the interior. He was that versatile guy in this. We've talked about the Texas A&M defensive end. He's 290 plus pounds, 6'4", but they play him at edge, where there's not a lot of 290 plus pound guys at edge in the NFL. So where is he going to end up? His tape on the interior, double teams, a little bit of an issue, but man, he was good against guards. I want him going up against guards as a pass rusher. I thought how he wins with his hands, so much pop in his hands, that is going to play. That's where I want to see him. And 18 reps at defense tackle in this game. Very impressive on them.
I think the word I came away with watching his tape this week was just control. Like never felt out of control, even against Colorado. Yep. Just completely in control on run snaps and pass snaps. He was a monster for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks now, just continues to dominate. Before we get to the biggest faller segment, we're getting news breaking left and right, and I apologize. And I know that James Palmer one wasn't that big of news, but Eric Bieniemy is emerging as a top candidate for the USC job. He's from Southern California. As people, Adam Schefter was reporting this from league sources that USC has been one of the college jobs that would interest him. Your immediate reaction?
No, that's interesting. I hadn't even thought about the NFL ranks, but for a team like USC, that would appeal for them. Like you think about the 04, 05, that range of teams. It was Pete Carroll was, former coach in the NFL, former coach with the Patriots. He was trying to develop NFL talent. That's what appealed to that program. I think getting another guy who came from the NFL is going to be like, I can, you're going to get a ton of offensive talent. You're going to get a ton of offense recruits if you get a guy who was Patrick Mahomes' offensive coordinator for sure. So that's interesting. I would love to see, hate to see that as a Notre Dame fan.
Hate to see that.